Hello everybody, welcome to Psych Academy. This is Orko sir and welcome to our PYQ session on research aptitude. Today we have 100 questions from previous year's papers and we will be discussing the answers to these questions, how to identify which topic the question is talking about and how to remember those topics. So let's start. Try answering the questions by yourself before getting into the explanations. 20 seconds will be provided for each question. Keep note of the incorrect answers. This is very important. Write down whichever numbering questions you are not being able to answer correctly. Please write those down. Even the ones that you are being able to correctly answer, please listen to the explanations because there is a possibility that you may get a question right simply by guessing. Once you are done, and just keep a note of your progress, that keep a note of how many you are able to score correctly, and then come back to it later and evaluate your progress. So first question, dash issues concern the question of what is or should be regarded as acceptable knowledge in a discipline. This is epistemological, okay? Epistemology, which means the epistemology means the study of knowledge. What should be knowledge, what should be considered knowledge. Ontology, it is about the study of reality. So for example, let's say that we consider that there is an objective reality, that the world is independent of how we perceive it. The world exists. We see it, we believe it, whatever. The world exists. Now, how do we get to it? Do we use scientific methods? Do we use interpretation? Do we go through meditation? That is epistemology. So ontology is what exists. Epistemology is how do we get to know what exists. Positivist is a paradigm which focuses on experiment, hypothesis, and quantifiable data. Realism is the belief that there is an objective reality regardless of how we personally perceive the world. Which of the following is correct? Validity does not focus on the accuracy of the instrument's measurement. Of course, validity does focus on, because if the instrument is not being able to measure accurately, then the instrument is not valid. Validity does not check the systematic and random errors in the measurement process. No, validity does check for errors. Reliability and validity are related to each other. Yeah, this is true. This has to be true. Face validity is probably the strongest way to find out the validity of the measurement for a research. Why? Face validity is informal. Face validity is just what it looks like without any rigorous study. So face validity is not the strongest way. Which of the following is incorrect under the postmodernism paradigm? Okay, so what does postmodernism mean? So let's understand that modernism is just the period after enlightenment. So this is when a lot of scientific theories are coming up and natural laws to explain things. For example, Newton's laws of motion are being are coming into the focus, and people are moving away from the religious interpretations to a more scientific objective reality. Now the point is, as we are going to the objective reality, that as if reality is independent of how we think of it, it exists out there, we are just part of reality. That is a modernist view. So postmodernism states that that does not always have to be the case, that just because we are leaving religious ideas does not mean that science can understand everything that there is. In fact, there is a belief called scientism, which states that as if science can get everything, which by the way is a fallacy, because science is not able to understand literally everything that there is. So postmodernism is against thinking that there is objective reality and there is grand universal laws that can explain the world as it is. So postmodernism, it focuses on seeking subject understanding through textual reconstruction. Not exactly. It accepts all the which is incorrect. It accepts all the grand narratives as the foundations for research. This is incorrect. It does not accept the grand narratives. That is, it does not accept any kind of universal laws that can explain everything, every phenomena that there is. Resistance towards certainty and resolution, exactly. It is against the too rigid focus of science, rejections of fixed notions of reality. This is also true. So it focuses on seeking subject understanding through textual reconstruction. This is not always true because it uses other methods than simply reconstructing text, but this is one of the methods, so this is not entirely incorrect. Accepting grand narratives is incorrect. The degree to which two or more observers agree in their coding and scoring of behaviors they are observing and recording relates to, that is inter-observer reliability. The idea is that basically different raters are agreeing on the way they are observing or dating a behavior. Observer bias is when the observer is making incorrect and biased assumptions. Observer drift, this is when an observer is, maybe you are continuing an observation for 5 to 6 months. So in the first month they are observing in one way, on the fifth month they are observing in another. That's a problem. Subject reactivity, this is part of the subject. This is not about the agreement between two or more observers. So this is inter-observer reliability. If research participants are assessed with a particular questionnaire early in a study, okay, but the researchers change the questions for later assessments, exactly, this is part of observer drift. So participants can't simply repeat answers, so that the question itself has changed. What potential threat to internal validity would be likely in the study? Instrumentation. It is the instrument that's the problem. Maturation happens on the participant. For example, you are studying somebody from 5 years old, and now the group has become 15 years old, and a lot of changes have happened within the group. Attrition, this is where participants leave from the study, especially longitudinal studies. History. History is any kind of large-scale event, for example, an earthquake, a political crisis, a war that affects the participants' behaviors a lot and is a confounding variable. The approach to the study of reality that suggests that only knowledge gained through experience and senses is acceptable refers to empiricism. Rationalism is about only our logic. Empiricism is focusing on the experience that you have. Symbolic interactionism, this is the use of language, how language is a symbol which we are going on interpreting in different ways to interact with others. Postmodernism, we just discussed. Objectivism is that everybody is looking at the same truth, which does not necessarily have to be empiricism. For example, if everybody uses the exact same logic, then that can also be considered to be objective. But empiricism is specifically on the experience. In many studies that span a long period of time, participants in the study may leave. This is attrition. This constitutes which of the following threats to internal validity? Testing, no, it is about the participants, not about the testing procedure, not instrumentation. Mortality or maturation. Now, maturation is participants simply changing. It does not talk about participants leaving, but mortality means death. And death means that participants are no longer being able to be part of the study. Your measurements should show which of the following validities if you want to generalize the result of your research to a different population. Generalizing the results, this is external validity. Not construct, not internal, external validity. Construct is whether the theory is adequately represented in the test. Internal is about cause and effect. Convergent means that so for example, you create an anxiety test. Then there are well-established tests like the STI test. And so then your test should be, the scores on your test should be highly correlated with the scores on the STI test. Then we can assume that yes, both the tests are measuring anxiety only. That is the established one, yours is the new one. The criteria of dependability in qualitative research parallels to which of the following criteria in quantitative research? Dependability in qualitative means reliability. That is every time, or in reliability, it is about scores. In dependability, in qualitative research, that different other researchers is coming with the same interpretation, or the same person looking at the data at different times is coming with the same interpretation. So it is reliability. A researcher conducts a study on a population and obtains some results. Okay. He now wants to generalize these results to a different population. We need external validity. For this, his measurements should show external validity. Convergent, like we stated, if you are making an anxiety test, it should match with STI, but it should not match with BDI because BDI tests depression while EO test measures anxiety. So these two, BDI and EO test, should not be matching. That is divergent validity. Identify the threats to internal validity associated with participants in the study. Something is happening or changing in the participants. Testing threat, no, this is about the instrument and this is about the researchers. Selection threat, yes, maybe you have chosen the wrong kinds of participants, his or past participants. History threat, some external event happens like an earthquake, like an economic crisis, which affects the participants' behavior. Attrition threat, participants leaving out. So B, C, D, option B. Which of the following criteria in research relates mainly to the issue of causality? Causality should be internal validity. Transferability, no. Transferability is the same as external validity, but for qualitative research. Measurement validity. This is about the instrument, if it is correct or not. External validity, you generalize or not. Causality is internal validity, option D. Which of the following is concerned with the question whether the measure of a concept truly represents the concept? This is a construct validity option. See, construct validity. As we discussed, transferability is generalizability for qualitative research. Internal validity is about cause and effect. External validity is about generalizing to other population. So whether or not it measures the concept, that is construct validity. The degree to which the measure of a concept truly reflects that concept refers to, well, this should be construct validity, but as I can see, construct validity is not there in the option. So it is mentioning the degree to which the measurement of a concept, the way we are measuring this concept, whether or not that truly reflects the concept, so that should be measurement validity. Ecological validity is whether or not it is matching with the real world. External validity is so okay. So the difference between ecological and external, even though similar, it is not the same. So here's the thing. So let's say mm, I test a particular kind of medicine within individuals who are extremely healthy and have no kinds of allergy. So in that case, then my study, and if I am conducting it in the real world for some sort of diseases that they had, then it has good ecological validity because it is a real world study where actual people going through the disease has been given a particular medicine. But it is a special kind of population, all of whom have very good health and very high immunity. Now, the same medicine may not work with other people, so it cannot generalize to other population. So even though it has ecological validity, it does not have external validity. Typically, if you have external validity, ecological validity will be there, but you can have ecological without having external. That's the main difference. External is about generalizing to other populations. Ecological is whether or not it represents real world situations. So a degree to which an ecological fallacy, once again, this is not about the natural world. It does not mention if it is in the real world or the laboratory. So the measure of a concept truly reflects that concept is measurement validity. In studies involving human subjects, there could be short or long-term changes in participants because of psychological changes like boredom and fatigue. This is maturation. This would constitute which of the following tests to internal validity? Maturation. So remember, maturation is any kind of threat, any kind of changes that has happened directly to the participant with passage of time. Okay, remember in maturation, passage of time is very important, even if it's little, even if it is a little bit of time. History threat, some external event happening. Selection threat, it is a sampling bias. This is not about boredom and fatigue. Instrumentation threat, again, not about boredom or fatigue. This is where the instrument or measurement itself is faulty. When participants drop out of a study leading to change in the nature of the sample, it would cause which of the following threats to internal validity? Attrition threat. The selection itself is biased, but selection is okay. But participants have left out, dropped out. History, again external event, testing is instrument. The questions of whether a measure that is devised for a concept really does reflect the concept that is supposed to be denoting relates to measurement validity because it is the measure, okay? Ecological validity, no, okay, we discussed all three of them in quite a bit of detail. When knowledge becomes replicable and verifiable, it is called scientific because it cannot be subjective, it is replicable, everybody is getting the similar results. Impressionistic, first of it is not even a very highly regarded research paradigm. It is mostly that our initial impressions, most very highly based on interpretations and hence qualitative. Qualitative is not really replicable or highly verifiable either. Less replicable than verifiable. Humanistic is not really a research paradigm. Okay, humanistic is the idea that humans have free will. We can choose our destiny, and we can have a lot of conscious control on our behavior. That's what humanism is, and that we are all good people moving towards a final goal where we are trying to fulfill our full potential, which according to some theories is self-actualization, other theories it is not. The extent to which a measure yields the same scores across different times, groups of people or versions of the instrument is reliability. Same scores, consistency of scores across different versions, that is reliability. Construct validity is whether or not the test measures the theory that it is trying to measure. Content validity, this is where the questions they are all valid themselves items. For example, in a math test, maybe I am asking you to do a very simple math, but the English that is used is so difficult that it is becoming more of an English test than a maths test. That is a problem of content validity. And predictive validity is whether or not you can predict a future performance. Like if I am doing an interview and trying to measure people who will be good for a particular kind of job, then my interview is valid if these people whom I have selected are actually good in the job that they are about to do a few months later. When the consistency of data collected is measured at different points of time, it is identified as test retest reliability. Inter-rater is different raters. Split half reliability is where you take a long test with so many items and then you split it into half. Two separate halves, and then you match the scores between, correlate the scores between these two. Internal reliability is once again about split half and also odd even reliability. So you can split the questionnaire in different ways, in a split half way, in an odd even way, in other many different kinds of ways. You make a summary of all that different correlations and hence you get internal reliability. At different points of time is test and retest. Take the test once, then give it another time and see if it matches. Statement 1. If the length of a psychological test is increased, it improves both reliability and validity. This is true because the longer the test, the more of the. So here's the simple thing. You have your UGC net syllabus, right? And in the syllabus, in the question paper, only some questions from the syllabus will be arriving, right? But the point is, if you make the test very long, the longer you make, the more questions you can add, and hence the entire syllabus can be covered in a much more comprehensive way. The better we can cover the syllabus, or in this case, the construct or phenomena that we are looking for, the better it increases validity and reliability. Statement 2, the score of a test can be interpreted without referring to its norm. No. How can this be the case? Norms have to be always there. A very simple example would be that you have scored maybe 45 on 100. So what is this? This is not a good score. This is a bad score. But now, if I tell you that the topper has got 47 and the average marks is 32, then 45 on 100 is a very good score because this is the average marks, this is what the topper has got. So, whenever we are interpreting any kind of score, it has to be interpreted with reference to the norms. Without the norms, it is meaningless. So, statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false, option C. Which of the following are excluded in scientific research? Empiricism, no. This is included. Removal of errors. We need to remove errors in scientific research. Subjectivity is excluded. We don't want subjectivity. Unethical practices should be excluded anywhere. It does not have to be scientific or research or anything. See, so easy they're making the questions for you. Non-predictive inferences, no. In scientific research, you'd want to predict. You have an hypothesis which predicts the outcome, and then we check if the prediction is matching or not. So no, we want predictive inferences that can predict behavior or predict phenomena. So the excluded is C and D. So C, D. Okay, since we do not have, oh right, non-predictive inferences. Yeah, right. Yeah, we do not have non-predictive inferences. We have predictive inferences. That is, we do want to predict. So non-predictive is not there. C, D, and E, option C. So I said it, but I chose predict. The social science research, which is data-based, has been associated with positivist philosophy. Phenomenology is direct interviews, not so much focused on quantitative data. Authoritarian mode. No, authoritarian mode is where you are gathering data from one source, from one book or one textbook or one religious scripture or from one person. That is authoritarian from authority. Network theory, it simply means that it is simply about different parts of a phenomena being connected with each other. So it is the positivist philosophy. What type of validity is this in which the researcher is encouraged to deduce hypothesis from a theory that is relevant to the concept? Deduce a hypothesis from a particular theory, that is construct validity. Because concurrent validity, concurrent means happening at the same time. So if I use your anxiety test and the STI test, I give both of them to the participants, then the scores on both of these should match. That is called concurrent validity. That is, both of them are working at the same time. This is also part of convergent validity. The difference between concurrent and convergent is that in concurrent validity, these two tests are given at the same time. In convergent validity, this does not have to be at the same time. Phase validity is simply what it looks like from the outside, not something that we're looking for. Hypothesis from a theory. Whenever you see getting the hypothesis or results from a particular theory, it is part of construct validity. Reliability refers to whether a test measures what it says it measures. No, that is validity. Validity refers to whether a test consistently yields the same or similar scores. That is reliability. So both statement 1 and 2 are incorrect. They have simply reversed it. Arrange the stages of conducting a survey for research. Pilot testing, designing the questionnaire. How can you pilot test before you have the questionnaire? Distributing the questionnaire, that has to come after a pilot, analyzing the responses. Okay. So we have designing the questionnaire B. Only after you have designed it, do you pilot test it. The initial testing on how to present it. Once pilot testing is done, then you distribute the questionnaire. And after that, analyze the responses. That is D. So B, A, C, D. B, A, C, D. Option D. Which of the following would apply to qualitative research methodology? Empiricism. Empiricism does, because in qualitative research, you are asking for experience, just not in a numerical format. Which of the following would apply to qualitative empiricism? Yes. Emphasis on description. Yes. Rationalism, yes, but does not have to be. Actually, modern qualitative research, it focuses less on just abstract logic. Structured, rigid methodology, this is more for quantitative. Qualitative is known to be flexible. Explores experiences, yes, meanings, perceptions, and feelings. So two things we can see that option B and option E has to be there. B and E has to be there. The other ones, well, they are not good options. Rationalism, structured digit methodology, this cannot be there. D cannot be there. Rationalism and empiricism, usually a bit more empiricist. So let's see A, B, and E. Yes, we have A, B, and D. Let's look at the other one. B, C, D. No, D cannot be there. C, D, E cannot be there. B has to be there. Okay. So option D, A, B, and E only. Which among the following features applies to descriptive research? Okay. It may involve the procedure of induction and analysis. Yes, induction is where you first get the data and then you form a theory. Deductive is you have the theory, you have the hypothesis, then you go to the data. In inductive, you have the data, then you go to the theory. A study that describes, yes, and interprets what is or was the case. Yes, it is very highly interpretive rather than statistical analysis. It can never be normative. Why? Normative means what should be done. There are so many theories of philosophical research which tells about what we should do. So it can be normative. It is used only in quantitative research. No, qualitative also. Survey studies is one of its types. Yes, survey is you are just getting the data. For example, how many people in India are not having jobs? So that's a survey, describes the data. A, B, and yes, option B, A, B, and D. Triangulation is a method of research adopted by qualitative. Okay. So now the point is applied and fundamental. They may use triangulation, they may not use triangulation. Triangulation is not always a big part of it. Triangulation basically means that you have mixed methods. Multiple different methods are being used. Now, yes, you can use that for applied research, can use that for fundamental research, but not specifically associated with those. Quantitative research is possible if you have a mixed methods, but all of the different methods happen to be quantitative. They can be quantitative, but triangulation for exam purposes is actually matched more with qualitative. So this is a kind of a very forced question. So triangulation can technically actually apply to all four of the options. But just because we know how to exactly answer these questions and what NTA looks for, I will know that it is qualitative research. In the light of format for action research, pick the correct order. Okay. Interpretation. Okay, this is towards the end. Results. Okay. Introduction, objectives, methodology. This has to be the beginning. Option C. Suggestions. Suggestions comes after interpretation. Intervention and impact of interventions. Okay. So this has to be there. Interventions. E. And impact of interventions, then you have the interpretation of the results, and then you have the suggestions, that is D, and the results. Actually, the point is when you see the term results, this means that it is talking about the results before the action research has been conducted, before the intervention has been given. Because when the intervention is given, it is called, the technical language is measurement rather than results. So results, so first you introduction, objectives and methodology. Then the results is the first survey which shows what situation is currently we are in. Then you put the intervention, then you have the interpretation of the data, and then finally suggestions of what should be done. So C, B, E, A, D. C, B, E, A, D, option C. And please remember that in action research, suggestions is extremely important because action research is conducted. Also, applied research is conducted to find out a solution to a problem. The research should end with what can we be doing. Which among the following is not a characteristic of a sound theory? A theory must be stated in simple and precise, which is not a characteristic. Theory must be stated in simple and precise terms. Yes, of course, it should be. Theory must not conform with the previously established body of knowledge or validated theories. Why? A theory should conform with whatever has research has already been done. So this is the not a characteristic. It must provide means for its own interpretation and verification. Exactly how do you test the theory? It must guide new discoveries and identify areas which are in need of investigation. Yes, that is what a good theory does. Grounded theory is a research strategy that does not generate theory from data. That is exactly what grounded theory does. Adopt inductive approach. Grounded theory adopts inductive approach from the data to the theory. Lead to the findings on the basis of statistical procedure. No, grounded theory does not use statistical procedures, which means this is one of the correct answers. Does not use non-statistical sampling. Yes, it does not use statistics. Consider context insignificant. No, grounded theory is a kind of inductive and qualitative research. Qualitative researchers focus on the context very highly. They consider the context important. So these two are not true. This is C and E, option D. What is the main aim of interdisciplinary research? To reduce emphasis on a single area of subject in research domain? No. If we are thinking of studying memory in behavioral terms and also in biological terms, just because we study the neuropsychology does not mean that we are thinking behavior is not important. Just because we use a cognitive perspective to depression does not mean we think that reinforcement and punishment is no longer necessary or the serotonin hypothesis is no longer necessary to create a new trend in research methodology. No, it is good if it can create a new trend, but creating trend is not the goal of the researcher. To bring out the holistic approach of a research, exactly that is what interdisciplinary is. Holistic means looking at the same problem from multiple angles. To oversimplify, see, whenever you are seeing oversimplify, over means we are doing too much of it. If it is already defined as doing too much of it, then that is not a kind, or that is not an aim of a research. Your aim is never to do too much. Your aim is to do what is correct. So option D cannot be correct. Option C. Which of the following is wrong with regard to longitudinal research studies? Okay, John. Which of the following is wrong? Study population is visited a number of times at regular intervals. This is the definition of longitudinal research. There is no need to visit more than once. Then how can it be longitudinal? So this is wrong. Intervals might be as short as a week or longer than a year. Of course, short as a week if it's medicine trials, longer than a year if it's developmental study. Intervals must be longer than a year. Why? It does not have to be longer than a year. So this is again incorrect, and hence our option that we're looking for. Intervals are not fixed, so their length may vary from study to study, like it can be a week or longer than a year. So B and D only, that is option C, B and D only. A study meant to discover whether a variable co-varies correlation. Co-vary relates to case study. Case study is in-depth study. Longitudinal is same population, multiple times take data. Correlational research, whether or not they are co-varying, varying together. Archival research is where you are using archival data, which is not about co-varying of variables. These are mostly interpretive in nature, where you are finding the records or documents from earlier times. Investigation taking place at a specific time and place that focuses on a single question and a specific time and place that is not oriented towards general questions is focus interviews. Refers to universalistic research, no, not oriented towards general questions. Ethological research. Ethology is about animal research in their natural habitat. Does not state that. Particularistic research, yes. Qualitative research, well, it does not mention if it is based on numbers or interpretation. All it says is that specific time and place that focuses on a single question. So it's particularistic research. In which of the following research strategies the predominant in which of the following research strategies predominant orientation of the role of theory in research is deductive, that is quantitative, because ah, Sorry about that. Quantitative, because it is the hypothetical-deductive model. Hypothetical-deductive model, you first have the hypothesis, then the data. Qualitative, it can often be exploratory and descriptive, so does not have a deduction all the time. Inductive is the opposite of deductive. Creative is also not really deductive, because first of all, creative can be creative can be both deductive and inductive. The other point is that deductive usually starts off with a theory, but in creative, you are finding out the theory, new ways of doing research, so not exactly deductive. In cross-sectional research, a researcher studies the same population over time. No, over time is longitudinal. Cross-sectional is one time. In retrospective study, a researcher relies on people's memories and recollections of the past. This is true. Retrospective is where you are looking back, asking people about what they have seen or felt. So statement 1 is incorrect, but 2 is correct. Option D. Identify the advantages of closed-ended, not closed-ended, closed-ended questions in a survey research. They allow unusual responses. No, unusual responses is open-ended. This is not closed-ended. It is easy to process their answers, yes, because you are just answering in yes, no, true, false, rating of 1 to 5. They reduce the possibility of variability. Exactly. They reduce variability, which is why unusual responses cannot be derived. So option C. B and C only, that is option B here. Knowledge is arrived at through the gathering of facts, okay, that provide the basis for laws. This is inductive, because you are first gathering the facts that provides the basis for laws. So first fact, then theory, that is inductive. This refers to the principle of inductivism. Objectivism is where every rater is rating it the exact same way, finding the same scores. Constructionism is the idea that our experiences is constructed by us rather than directly received from the environment without any kind of bias. Which of the following represents the epistemological orientation? Epistemological is the study of knowledge of qualitative research. Deductivism, no, deductive is quantitative. Positivism, again, very highly numerical, so not qualitative. Objectivism, qualitative is criticized for being subjective, so it's not objectivism, it's interpretivism. We interpret the data rather than statistically analyze them. A quantitative research would be mainly concerned with measurement, yes, causality, yes, replication, yes, context, not so much. Context is more for qualitative, where we are taking into significance the entire context and environment. So A, B, and D. Option B, A, B, and D. Identify the longitudinal studies. Trend studies, yes. Cross-sectional is the opposite of longitudinal. So no. Panel studies, yes. Perspective studies, yes. So A, C, and D. So panel studies, trend studies is, so for example, how something is, the trend is changing. Like right now, maybe the results of NEET exam paper leak is trending, will not be the same case 1 year later. Panel studies, this is where a panel of experts have been brought again and again to speak on some relevant issue. Prospective studies, these are the basic kind of longitudinal studies. You take the data once today, then maybe 1 month later, then again 1 month later, then again 1 month later. This is prospective studies. What is happening what will changes we will be seeing in the future. Purpose of theory is to generate hypothesis, yes, that can be tested, yes, and that will thereby allow explanation of laws to be assessed. Okay, kind of true, not always true, but kind of true. The above statement refers to the principle of deductivism, because we have the theory which generates hypothesis, and after the hypothesis is there, then the testing and data collection is happening. So first hypothesis, then data collection, which means deductivism, not inductionism, not objectivism. It does not talk about other people um, scoring it the exact same way. And constructionism is not really a research paradigm. It is just the idea that we construct our experiences rather than passively receive it. Which among the following is not an advantage of open-ended questions in a survey research? They are useful for explaining areas in which researcher has limited knowledge. Yes, this is where exploratory research is there. Exploratory research uses open-ended questions and in an interview, open-ended interview where non-structured interview where the researcher is simply asking maybe a new culture, what are your views, what are your religious ideas, what are your practices. Respondents can answer in their own terms. This is the advantage. They allow unusual responses to be derived exactly. They are easy for the interviewers or respondents to complete. No, because interviewers have to read through all of the responses and manually try to interpret the results rather than simply feed it onto a computer or onto a formula like you can do with closed-ended questions. So option D. Identify the similarities between quantitative and qualitative research. Okay. Both are concerned with data reduction. True. Data reduction is basically you are organizing a phenomena into smaller chunks which can be analyzed or interpreted. Both are concerned with variation in data. Yes, how people and phenomena changes. Both lay emphasis on contextual understanding. No, this is only qualitative. Both lay emphasis on generalization. This is only quantitative. Both are concerned with answering research questions. This has to be true. So option E. So A, B, and E. Do we have that? A, B, and E? Yes. The study of the behavior of humans and non-humans in a natural environment without any manipulation of variables is ethological studies. So quasi-experimental, any kind of experimental would mean manipulation of variables, or it says without manipulation. So ethology is not in the option. Not quasi-experimental, observational research. Yes, without manipulation of variables. Subjective research does not have to be. You can use even video recording to observe data. In that case, it is not subjective. Everybody is seeing the same thing in the video. Anthropometric research. So this is the kind of research where you use questionnaires to understand a particular kind of culture, which is again it is just by using the questionnaire you may be just manipulating and interfering with the study. So it is not an example of no manipulation. So B option observational research. The photo elicitation technique is used in ethnography. Experimental research, no. Visual ethnography, yes. Applied research, content analysis. So photo elicitation is because what happens is when you are trying to understand another culture, which is what ethnographers do, often there is a strong language barrier, and it gets difficult to communicate. So instead of using language, sometimes photos, images are shown, which is more or less universal to everybody. Everybody may have different names for the rose plant, but everybody sees the rose plant. The visual image is the same. So sometimes photos are used. That is the photo elicitation technique. Content analysis, this is about textual data, not about photo elicitation. In quantitative research, providing a basis for more precise estimation, okay, precise estimation of the degree of relationship among or between concepts is the function of measurement. Surveying is simply finding descriptive data. It does not provide any idea of the degree of relationship. This is more into correlation. Reviewing, you are not gathering data. You are just simply using the data and summarizing it. Measurement, yes, because it is about precise estimation of exactly what's going on. Sampling is again not about degree of relationship. Sampling is simply the first step on which you will conduct the study. If correspondents are offered an option of answering a questionnaire, for example, by the postal questionnaire, by web survey, it is called a mixed mode survey. That is, you can answer it whichever way you want. So you will be given an option. Do you want it to be sent to you by post? Do you want to do it online? So for example, when there's a government scheme and let's say that you need to update your Aadhaar details. Then you can do it online, you can do it by post, you can do it by going to a dedicated office or counselor. So that is a mixed mode survey, not optional survey. It does optional means that you may or may not do it. It does not mention that in the question. Multiple survey is multiple surveys. Again, it does not mention that. Selective survey is that you are surveying only a specific portion of the population. Again, the question does not mention that, but what it does mention is that the survey can be taken in different ways. So a mixed mode survey. Please remember to subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss out on any updates on soft PYQs, exam updates, strategies and tips, and of course, full classes. And please remember to press the bell icon, because without that, you will not receive all the notifications. You will not receive only a few of them. The panel study has the issue of panel study is a kind of longitudinal study, and any kind of longitudinal study has the issue of attrition, not single survey, because in panel study it is a longitudinal research. You are conducting the survey multiple times. Different variables, no, you are keeping the variable exactly the same. Inanimate objects. Why inanimate objects? Why did they put these options here? I don't know. 52. Statement 1. A cohort is a population whose members have some specific characteristics in common. Exactly. Example, people in a particular job or people of a particular age group. Statement 2. In a prospective study, okay, the researcher relies on people's memories and recollections of the past. No, that is a retrospective study, not a prospective. So statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. Assertion. Surveys conducted over the internet have witnessed a huge growth since late 1990. This is true because the use of internet actually increased much more after 1990, as we have learned in ICT with the rise of the IBM computers, which can now be placed in everybody's homes. Reasoning, internet users always constitute an unbiased sample of the population. No, 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 no. In fact, internet users are a vast population because these are the people who can afford a laptop or a smartphone or a tab, and these are literate, they are digitally well equipped, they have good network connection. So no, this is not an unbiased sample. In fact, it can be very biased. So reasoning is incorrect. So A is true, but R is false. Option C, not D, C. The process of deduction in research has the following steps, which are they? Okay. Photocopying the research material. Why? Theory, yes. You need theory. Hypothesis and data collection, yes, comes from the theory. Data analysis, yes. Findings, confirmation, rejection of hypothesis, yes. Preparing the index is not necessarily a part of the study. It may be, but it usually is not part of the study. It is part of how to present the study. So B, C, D, option B, B, C, D. In ethnographic research, the researcher involves himself in a philosophical discourse, no, that's discourse analysis. Political campaign, no. Financial transaction, that's part of economics, not it. Ethnography is understanding how the people of a particular culture live. Social setting, yes. That is the social setting where a person, an ethnographer is going in a culture, learning their values, their modes of behavior, their rituals. And it does not have to be, for example, a very distant tribal culture. You can even study the condition of urban slums. You can study the condition of suburban households. You can study the condition of railway, people living around railway stations. Any kind of social setting works. When a sampled individual is observed over a predetermined period of time in a structure in observation, it is called a focus sample. That is, you are focusing on a very particular small, and focus sampling usually have a very small scale sample, and with those few people, you are just studying them and observing them in a lot of detail. Observed sampling. There is nothing called observed sampling. Random sampling, it is not about observation for predetermined period of time. Purposive sampling is where you are selectively choosing who are the ones that you will be studying. But the method of studying can be anything. It does not have to be observation for a predetermined period of time. Statement 1. Focus group discussions. In focus group discussions, the moderator is supposed to provide a liberal climate for participants to open up. Yes, so that everybody can provide their views. Participants of focus group discussions should rant individual experiences for companies. See, you do not need to study any kind of research methodology or psychology or philosophy or anything like that to understand that statement 2 cannot be correct. People should not just keep on ranting in a panel study, in a focus group study. So statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. Option C. Which of the following are considered major types of qualitative research questions? Non-purposive, no. Qualitative research does have purposive questions where they are trying to find out specific information. Example, the experience of losing a loved one to cancer, maybe. Causes and consequences, yes, not through experiment, but yes, causes and consequences. Predictive can be actually, it can try to predict how people will behave later. In fact, all the philosophy theories about human nature, qualitative, but do try to predict human behavior. Evaluative, yes, makes a judgment of positivity or negativity. Descriptive describes the phenomena. So B, C, D, E, B, C, D, E, option D. Statement 1. Applied research is concerned with generalization and the formulation of theory. Formulation of theory is fundamental or basic research. Applied research is for solution. Fundamental research aims at finding a solution for an immediate problem facing a society. No, this is applied research. They have just reversed it. So both statement 1 and statement 2 are incorrect. Option B. Poor analysis in historical research is due to, okay, historical research is where you are interpreting events from history, just recollecting what may have happened. Impersonal interpretation, no. Impersonal, you are supposed to be objective and not use your own personal biases, which is why impersonal interpretation is good. It is not leading to poor analysis. Emphasis on objective assessment, this is exactly what we want. Over generalization, over simplification. They are clearly stating over, which means if you are doing too much of it. So if you are doing too much of it, it is bound to lead to errors and hence poor analysis. So C, yes, D, yes. Non-identification of social context. If you do not identify the context of the situation. So for example, let's say that that you can say that all wars are problematic, all empires or all emperors are bad. But if you get to the context, they get to the surrounding background of the information of the empire, then you may try to understand that why a particular emperor chose to wage war against another party, and that may have been for the good of the people. That is when you are understanding the context and not just saying that all wars are bad. So non-identification of social context, if you do not identify the context, it leads to misinterpretation. So C, D, and E, option C. If a survey is conducted telephonically, okay, which among the following statement is true? It is usually convenient and economically easier. It improves quality of data. No. In person is always better. It improves the validity of research. Once again, no. Or in person is better. It reduces the cost of data collection. The person does not have to keep on going from house to house to take the data. It makes participants comfortable. Again, in most cases, in person is much more comfortable. The type of research in which a researcher gains familiarity with a phenomenon to achieve new insights. So exploratory. Diagnostic research, no. Diagnostic is you are assuming that this is the You are trying to find out the cause of a phenomena. So not diagnostic. Exploratory, yes, to achieve new insights which the researcher did not know earlier. Descriptive research study, descriptive is just describing what happened. It is not about new insights. Hypothesis testing, once again, if a hypothesis does not directly lead to new insights, it already has a hypothesis, you either accept it or reject it. So option B, exploratory research. Which among the following are examples of personal documents for the purpose of sources of data? Diaries, yes. Mass media is not personal. Letters, yes. Autobiographies. See, autobiographies. If it was biographies, it will not be personal data. But autobiographies, a person has written about themselves directly. So, yes, company documents. It's not your personal thing, it's the company's document. So, no. A, C, and D, that is option C. Statement 1. Field notes are important for prompting the ethnographer's memory and for much of the data for subsequent analysis. Correct? Because an ethnographer can stay in a particular society for 4 months, 6 months, more than a year. So how will they remember each and everything that happened throughout the year? Field notes are important and they jog the memory of the researcher. Research methods such as qualitative interviewing are flexible, yes, and are less disruptive of the work and personal lives of both researchers and research participants. This is also true because when you are getting into experimental analysis, then what happens is then the experimental chamber needs to be created and the participant has to be put in the chamber where data will be gathered, and hence they are having to go to some sort of activities which they may not have preferred. But in qualitative simply interviewing, you are not interfering with the participant's life at all. So both statement 1 and statement 2 are true. Option A. Statement 1. Exploratory research is conducted for data indications. Exactly. That what are the indicators that my data is giving? That what more can I find out about it? New insights. The goal of exploratory research is to gather final data to find out causality. No, final data for causality, that is diagnostic research. That this is exactly what happened. So statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is false. So option C. A variable that can take up only integer values and not only fractional values, not any fractional values, is a discrete variable. So the difference between continuous and discrete variable is, for example, your height is continuous. It can be 5 foot, it can be 5 foot 5, it can be 5 foot 6, it can be 5 foot 6.5, it can be 5 foot 6.525, many things. But number of members in your family, it can be 3, it can be 4, it can be 10, but it can't be 3.5. It can't be 4.75 because that is only in whole numbers. That's a discrete variable. Complex variable means it has more than one measurement. Temporal variable is about time. 67. Identify the correct statements about hypothesis testing. Okay. A null hypothesis, identify the correct statements. Null hypothesis assumes that no relationship between variables or defined groups exists. This is true. An alternative hypothesis assumes that no relationship between variable or defined group exists. No. Alternative hypothesis assumes that relationship does exist. A hypothesis must be acceptable or falsifiable. Yes, this is why the experiment is conducted. Null hypothesis is always true. No, null hypothesis can be rejected. So it is not always true. A and C. Option A. Which of the following statements could be considered as a valid scientific hypothesis? Adults should drink more water. Should. This is normative. This is moralistic. This is not scientific. Eating 20 almonds a day increases the risk of contracting heart disease. This is scientific. You have a specific number and a direction of the change that is decreases the risk of contracting heart disease, and a very specific thing, contracting heart disease, rather than just improving your health as a whole. Cows should be given green fodder. Children should eat cereals. These are not scientific hypotheses. These are recommendations based on scientific data. So option B. If a researcher decides to have a control group in a placebo design, then they should have how many groups? That is 3 groups. So for example, if you have experimental group that has coffee, then a control group that has some liquid, which is a placebo, which looks like coffee, smells like coffee, tastes like coffee, but does not have any caffeine in it. And then you have so this is the placebo group. Sorry, this is the placebo group. And then you have the control group, who are not given any kind of coffee or anything at all. That is the baseline for comparison. This is no coffee. So three groups. Which of the following is correct? Factor design is used for one dependent variable and two or more independent variable. Exactly. Dependent variable is one, independent variable is two or more, which is why you can get the interaction effect as well as the main effect. Factor designing is used for extraneous variables. No, extraneous variables are eliminated. Factor design has only one independent variable. No, it has two independent variables at the least, so that you can have interaction effects. Factor designing is used for two or more dependent variables. No, dependent variable always remains one only. So option A. What is ANOVA? There's nothing to explain here. ANOVA is analysis of variance. This is the full form of ANOVA. Which among the following are correct in the light of hypothesis? It is proved assumption. No. Hypothesis, we are seeing if it can be proved or not. It should be capable of being tested. Yes, that's the goal of the experiment, hypothesis testing. It should be inconsistent with most known facts. Why? We want the reason we do literature review is so that it can be consistent with whatever data is already there. It should state the relationship between variables exactly, which can be tested. It should be limited in scope and must be specific, because you cannot study everything all at once. So B, D, and E, option B, D, and E only. Which of the following is not a property of chi-square distribution? For large degrees of freedom, chi-square distribution approaches normal distribution. Exactly. That is how chi-square works. So I have to draw the graph for chi-square there. But the point is, chi-square graph, it starts to look like this. And the larger the df, the more it starts to start from here. So again, you make the df small, it goes like this. The df even small, it goes like this. But if you have a very large df, then the chi-square distribution goes like this. So it approaches normal distribution for very large degrees of freedom. This is true. So not a property. So this is not what we are looking for. So it is the tick mark. Chi-square is a test statistic. Yes, of course it is. 3 times the number of degree of freedom is equal to variance. No. 2 times the number of degrees of freedom is equal to variance. In chi-square data, in chi-square in chi-square test, the variance, that is sigma square, is equal to 2df, that is degrees of freedom. And in case anybody forgot, the degree of freedom for chi-square is equal to c minus 1 into r minus 1, where c is equal to number of columns and r is equal to number of rows. So 3 times number of degree of freedom is equal to variance. This is incorrect, which means for this question, this is the correct answer. Identify the correct statements regarding content analysis. It is a very transparent research method. Yes, it is. Because in content analysis, you have a full-on coding manual which can be verified by other researchers. Replications and follow-up studies are not feasible. This is not true. You have such a huge coding manual and systematized coding manual, so simply so that other people can replicate and use the same formula for their studies. It can allow a certain amount of longitudinal analysis with relative ease. Yes, it can do that, because you can interpret the same data or same text in different ways based on your different age. Like we have different stories that we like at different age, right? So we can see the change in the preference of stories based on age. That is a kind of longitudinal analysis. It can be applied to a wide variety of different kinds of unstructured textual information. In fact, this is the reason content analysis has been developed as a method, so that so much of textual information that is already there can be studied. So D is also there, A, C, and D. Option B, A, C, and D. Identify the scales of measurement that is an absolute 0 point. Only one scale of measurement has an absolute 0 point. That is the ratio scale. Interval scale does not have an absolute 0 point. So, for example, you give somebody an anxiety test, and they get a score of 0. Does that mean that they have zero anxiety throughout their life? You give somebody an intelligence test, and again they score 0. Does that mean that the person has zero intelligence, nothing at all? So no, these are all examples of ratio score. So, or examples of interval score, and the only one that has an absolute 0 point or a true 0 point is the ratio scale. So option C, only C. Informal experimental designs. Informal, which means they are not following all the structures. Factorial, no, it follows the structures. Before and after, without control. So it is not following structure, it is informal. After only, there is no before. So this is also informal. Randomized block designing is very formal with a proper research method. Before and after with control. So you have the before, you have the after, and you also have the control design. So this is a proper experiment and hence not an informal experiment. So B and C. B, C only. Option B. The numerator and denominator degrees of freedom are used in which of the following test statistic in hypothesis testing? This is the F test, because F is used for ANOVA. And in ANOVA, what do we measure? The sum of squares between group by the DF between group, and the sum of squares within group by the DF within group, right? So we have two kinds of DFs at the numerator and the denominator. Numerator and denominator degrees of freedom used in which test? The F test. All other ones, T, Z, chi-square, they do not require any kind of this kind of fractional format for their final answer. So this is what the F ratio is. That is sum of squares between groups by DF between groups, sum of squares within groups by DF within groups. Identify the correct statements about content analysis. The main use of content analysis has been in the examination of printed text and documents. That is true. Content analysis lacks transparency. No, it is very highly replicable and transparent. Coding is crucial in content analysis. Yes, so that it remains transparent and hence replicable. It is almost impossible to devise coding manuals that do not entail some interpretation on the part of the coders. It is impossible, because after all, how exactly you are coding and the themes you are using is after all dependent on the researcher's preferences. So A, C, and D, A, C, and D, option C. Suppose H naught is equal to null hypothesis. Yeah, we anyway suppose that. HA is equal to alternative hypothesis. Mu is the population mean. Mu H naught is equal to hypothesized mean, which means that mu is equal to mu H naught. Because hypothesized mean, what does null hypothesis state? Null hypothesis state that there is no difference between the population and the sample that we have. So the population mean and the sample mean has to be same. Oh, see, HO, that is the null hypothesis. H naught is mu is equal to mu H naught. And HA alternative hypothesis, mu less than mu H naught. So this will be in this situation, researchers should apply a left tail test because it works like this. So it is only one direction, right? So when you have, so let's say this is the So it is saying mu is the population mean. So this is the population mean. Okay. And HA. So, oh, mu less than mu H naught. Oh, mu H naught is already given. So that will be taken as the center. Remember, always mu H naught is taken as the center. That is, if there happens to be no similarity, or this if as if there is no difference between the groups or the sample and population, then U or the mean population mean is less than. Less than means, so less than means it goes towards this side. This is the direction of the minus direction. This is the plus or positive direction. So if it is going to the left side, which mean the tail of the study will be something like this. So this is the area that we are focusing on. So this tail is a left tail test. Remember, the tail is based on the direction of the tail. So since it is on the left hand side, because it is negative, it is a left tail test. Remember one thing, that whenever we are using a study where they have written something like less than or greater than, then it is a one tail test. Both of these are part of one tailed test. If it is given like this, that mu not equal to mu H naught, where it is simply saying that it is not equal to but not giving the direction, then it is a two-tailed test. And within the one-tailed test, since we are looking for the negative side, the left-hand side, it is the left-tailed test. There is nothing called a half-tailed test. Half-tailed tests are sometimes informally called a one-tailed test, but technically there is nothing called a half-tailed test. So option B. Arrange the following statistical measures in increasing order. Okay, 37th percentile. So what 37th percentile means that if we have a normal distribution like this, then if this is the 37th percentile, which means this area has 37% of the data, right? So 37th percentile falls at the 37% mark. Now first quartile, again, if we have a normal distribution, then we can divide it into three parts. This is Q1, Q2, Q3. So 37 percentile is 37% mark. First quartile. So this is the first quartile. This is the 25% mark, right? 25, then under here 50, then under this entire area 75, then the total is 100. So first quartile is 25. So this is coming to 25% of the data. Median is always in the middle. So this is 50% of the data it covers. And third, decile. So what exactly is a decile? Decile is when you take a normal distribution and then divide it into 10 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, and this is the 10th part. So in this case, what is the third decile? 1, 2, 3. So within this, we have 10, 20, 30% of the data. Then 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So on the third decile out here, we have 30% of the data. So if you have to arrange them in increasing order, first quartile is only 25. So B, then you have 30, that is D, then you have 37 percentile, that is A, and then median C. So BDAC. BDAC option B. Arrange the following data set with means X and standard deviation sigma in increasing order of their coefficients of variation. Now, coefficients of variation is sigma by mean into 100. Sigma is standard deviation and this is the mean into 100. So let's look at each of the data. What do we get by calculating them? I will be using the calculator to save mine and yours time. Okay. So remember sigma by mu. So 4.3 divided by 25, it is coming to 17.2. Then let's do 3.7 divided by 20 into 100, that is 18.5. Then you have 5.2, 5.2 divided by 35 into 100, that is coming to 14.857. I'll write 14.86. And then you have 6.1 divided by 40 into 100, that is 15.25. So following data sets in increasing order we have to arrange. So option 14.86, option C, then 15, that is option D, then option B 17.2, and then finally A 18.5. So C, D, B, A. C, D, B, A, option C. The tendency of people being observed to act differently than normal as a result of their awareness of being monitored refers to subject reactivity. Observer bias is biased interpretation by the observer themselves. Observer drift is maybe you are observing for maybe 3 days. On the first day, you observe in one way. On the third day, you observe in another way. That is observer drift. Debriefing is not about how people are acting differently. Debriefing is once the experiment is conducted, then the participants are given an overview of what happened in the experiment, why whatever things needed to happen, if there is any deception, why it was used. So basically, overall, trying to ensure that the participants do not have any negative effect of the experiment. Select sequential variable. Sequential means ordinal. Okay, please remember this. Sequential means ordinal. So rank of army personnel, rank will of course be ordinal. Religion is not ordinal. Religion is nominal because you are not ranking religion one on top of the other. In fact, that would be very problematic. Ranking one religion higher than other, it is nominal. Caste, please remember, this is also nominal. Even though according to some religious texts or religious people, caste is also ordinal. Some caste is above other castes, some are lower. But no, according to scientific data, caste is not ordinal, that they are not ranked in their superiority. It is simply a criteria or category, so nominal. Annoyance level. So whenever we are talking about a level, it is like level 1, level 2, level 3. That is ordinal data. Temperature in Celsius, that is not ordinal, that is interval. Because you can just write, so for example, it's not about ranking, like 20 degrees centigrade is double the temperature of 10 degrees centigrade. So in that, so and you can have 10 degrees centigrade, you can have 20.5 degrees centigrade, you can have 37.6 degrees centigrade. So whenever you can break it down into non-integers, into decimals, into fractions, it cannot be ordinal data because ordinal is about rank. You do not have 2.5 ranks. Yes, in statistical calculation, sometimes we do it, but in basic measurement, ordinal does not use fractions or decimal points. So A and D, option C, only A and D. Arrange the data set with following pairs of mean and standard deviation in increasing order of the coefficient of variation. No, similar sum. So let's do this. Please remember the formula. Coefficient of variation is equal to sigma by mu or mean into 100. If you want, you can also write sigma by x into 100. I'll write the sigma a bit better. Now, once again, let's calculate, and to save both your and my time, I will be using the calculator. So 12 divided by 50 into 100 comes to 24. Okay, what happened is then we get 10 divided by 55 into 100 is 18.18. Then you have 14 divided by 60 into 100, that is 23.33. And finally 15 divided by 70 into 100 is equal to 21.43. One second, I'll drink a bit of water. 21.43. So let's arrange them in the increasing order. Least is 18, so B. Then we have 21, so D. Then we have 23, so C, and finally A. So B, D, C, A. B, D, C, A, option B. When the sample has been randomly selected, which of the following may be expected in cross-sectional research design? Okay. In cross-sectional research design and randomly selected. Strong external validity, yes. When you select randomly, it is to ensure that the sample is not biased. So whatever data you have, it should not be applicable only to one particular sample, but to all other samples, the entire population. Weak external validity, no. This is not the point of random selection. Weak internal validity, strong internal validity. Actually, random selection, it does not affect internal validity very often. Okay, in fact, random selection is more about external validity. It does not affect internal validity. But for question purposes, whenever there is strong external validity, sometimes it is considered that internal validity automatically goes down. So option A, strong external validity, and option C, weak internal validity, that is only A and C. The correct answer actually is that internal validity is not affected by random selection. This is actually not a very proper question that has been put here. Identify the probability sampling techniques. Probability means simple which means that every person has a chance of being a part of the study. Simple random sampling, yes. Snowball, no, because in snowball you are not just making a random selection from all the population pool. You are asking, snowball is like this: you ask one person, they give you info about two more people, they give you info about three more people, and they give you info about even more people, like this. So this is how a snowball sample goes. This is not random sampling. This is very directed and based on how many people your initial contact and then their contacts know. Stratified random sampling, yes, you divide the population into different strata. For example, children, then teenagers, then young adults, then middle-aged, then senior citizens. You can divide them in stratas, and from each of the strata, you just randomly select different people. So that is an example of probability sampling. Convenience, again, it is not probability because convenience is based on what is easy for the researcher rather than how it actually should be done. So for example, you have to conduct a study on college professors. You are studying only the professors in your college, which may already be a biased sample. So convenience sampling is not random sampling. Option A and C. Of C, only A and C. The systematic elimination of extraneous variables other than those you are interested in achieved in experimental. Qualitative, no. Correlational, no, because correlational does not have to be controlled settings. See, this is a hallmark of Only in controlled settings can you reduce or eliminate extraneous variables. So not qualitative. Qualitative is not controlled settings. It is often real world settings. Correlational, no. Experimental research, yes. Longitudinal does not have to be controlled settings. You can even just use longitudinal surveys where you are measuring the height growth for children of different ages. If you wish to test whether population mean is lower than some hypothesized value, you would apply a one-tailed test because the population mean is lower. Whenever you see a lower than sign or a greater than sign, it is a one-tailed test. If you see something like a non-equal sign, or that there is a relationship or there is a difference between population mean and hypothesized value without giving you the direction, then it is two-tailed. So it is a one-tailed test, not a two-tailed. There is nothing called a half-tailed or a three-tailed test. For the ideal normal distribution, the median would be equivalent to which of the following measures? Okay. So this is the ideal normal distribution, and the median is directly at the middle. That at the midpoint, you have the median. So second quartile, where do we get the second quartile? So the second quartile divides it like this: Q1, Q2, Q3, 25%, then 50%, then 75%, and 100%. So anyway, median is covering 50% of the data. So second quartile, and so the median is equivalent to the second quartile. This is true. In an ideal distribution, mean is equal to median is equal to mode. This we already know, that mean is equal to median is equal to mode in ideal distribution. So yes, it will be equal to the mean, it will be equal to the mode. It will be equal to the 50th percentile because it is by definition, it is covering the median being at the midpoint is covering 50% of the data. So yes, 50th percentile also, and fifth decile, because what did we just learn about decile? Decile is you take the normal distribution and then you divide it into 10 divisions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 divisions: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And each of the divisions has 10% of data: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So the fifth decile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the fifth decile. This is the point that we are looking at. It has 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the data. 50% means it's the same as the 50th percentile or the median. So fifth decile. So A, B, C, D, E, all of them. Option D. When two variables are related in such a way that when one increases, so does the other, you can conclude that it is positive correlation. There is no problem with directionality. No. When one increases, so does the other. It is not like they are just changing. We have clearly mentioned the direction of change. So this is not the case. The two variables are positively associated or positively correlated. Yes, there are no latent variables affecting the relationship. We do not know that. There can be a third variable. There is a third variable responsible for the causation between them. Again, we do not know if there is a third variable. There can be, there may not be. Identify the correct sequence of steps in conducting a literature review for a research study. Locate the literature, organize. Okay, organizing the literature obviously comes after location. Identify key terms for search. This is the first one. This is where we start with. Write a literature review. Writing the review, this has to be the steps conducting in a literature review. Writing the review, this has to be the last step. Critically evaluate and select literature relevant to research. So first, what we do is identify the key terms, which are the terms we are looking for. For example, let's say we want to look for the term depression. Then what we will do is we will go through all of the portals like Google Scholar, PubMed, and all NCBI and all of those. and then find out all of the studies that are related to depression. That is, locate the literature. So option A. After that, now that we have this, we not all studies that were done on depression can be put into our systematic review, literature review, because we don't want studies of depression that were using, let's say we don't want depression studies using qualitative methods, or we don't want any kind of study that did not have an alpha level of 0.1. Maybe we want strict criteria, or any study that did not use the proper kinds of measurement tools, or any study that had biased samples. Maybe we do not want studies that have sample size less than 10, right? So in different ways, we now have to critically evaluate and select the literature that is relevant to the search. So then we have E, finally organize the literature and then write the review. So C, A, E, B, D. C, A, E, B, D, option C. The systematic elimination of extraneous variables other than those you are interested in. Uh, Did we not do this question right now? Can be done in which of the following types of research? Experimental research. Correlation does not have controlled settings. Qualitative, no controlled settings. Longitudinal research, you may have it, you may not have it. In positively skewed distribution, which of the following would be true? How do we understand the shape of the distribution? Positively skewed, which means the tail is on the positive side. So if we draw a number line like this is where the 0 point is. So this is where the positive side, this is the negative side. Positively skewed means the tail is on the positive side. So it is going like this. So if I have to draw it, it works like this. This is the positively skewed distribution. So in the positively skewed distribution, as okay, I'll just redraw it so that the mode is clearer. Right? This is a positively skewed distribution. So out here, the highest point, this is the 0 point, and the highest, this is the positive side. This is what the tail is the negative side. And this highest point, this is where the mode is. Right? This is what the mode is going. Now this is the highest point, but this is a skewed distribution, right? So which means that the skew is towards the positive side. So the median has to be towards the positive side. So this is where the median is coming, and then comes the mean or mu. Please remember the order is mean, then median, and then mode. It will always be like that. Median will always be on the middle. It can be mean, median, mode. It can be mode, median, mean, but whatever be the case, median will always be in the middle. So when you have this kind of a skewed distribution, please remember that you first have to identify the highest frequency, so mode point. From that, the median is towards the tail. Median goes towards the tail. So this is the median, which means this will be the mean. So in this case, positively skewed distribution, mean greater than mode. See, the mean is more towards the positive side, right? So the mean is greater than the median, which is greater than the mode. Because mean is more positive than the median is more positive than the mode. So mean greater than mode, yes. Mode greater than median, no. Mean greater than median, yes. Mode greater than mean, no. Median greater than mean, no. So A and C, that is option B. Please remember how to construct the skewness. I'll just draw it once again. Positive, or so this is a positive skew or right skew, right? It is skewed, or the tail is towards the positive side. This is uh, this is the negative skew or the tail is towards the negative or right side. In both the cases, please identify this is the mode. Remember that the median is towards the side of the tail from the mode. So if this is the side of the tail, then this is where the median is going to be. This is where the median is going to be because this is the side of the tail, direction of the tail. And median is always in the middle between mean and mode. So if this is the median, this here is the mode and this here is the mode. So for a positively skewed distribution, see mean is more towards positive, mean greater than median, greater than mode. For a negatively skewed distribution, see mean is towards the negative side. So mode is greater than the median, which is greater than the mean. Or you can also write mean is less than the median, less than the mode. Please remember this formula and how to identify and draw the figure. Statement 1. Spearman's law is generally employed to measure the strength and direction of relationship between two ordinal variables. Yes, that is why Spearman's law is used. When it is to continuous variables, it is Pearson's product moment. Statement 1 is correct. It is also called rank correlation. Rank is for ordinal data. Statement 2. Pearson's coefficient of correlation is very useful when relationship between two variables is curvilinear. No. For curvilinear, we require a binomial distribution, not Pearson's coefficient of correlation. So statement 1 is correct. Statement 2 is incorrect. Option C. Statement 1. SPSS is an open source software for data analysis. Come on, we know. SPSS is not open source. Open source means free. SPSS is not free. It requires a subscription. So incorrect. Statement 2. Turnitin is a very useful software for statistical data analysis. No, Turnitin is a software for plagiarism detection. So both statement 1 and 2 are incorrect. Option B. Which among the following is an open source software for data analysis? Open source means that first of all, it is free. And second, anybody can change the programming of the software to suit their purposes. Not SPSS, not MATLAB, Minitab, it is R. MATLAB and Minitab are mostly for programming and coding, and both of them are not open source and hence paid. Statement 1. A dependent variable can never be dichotomous. No, it can easily be dichotomous because if I want to do an experiment where let's say if you shoot somebody, they are either alive or dead. It is dichotomous, either alive or dead. So dependent variable can be dichotomous. This is incorrect. An independent variable is always dichotomous. Why? It can have more than one category like high IQ, low IQ, mid IQ. It can be even continuous. So independent variable does not always have to be dichotomous. Both statement 1 and 2 are incorrect. Option B. An experimental research allows you to eliminate the influence of many extraneous factors. Exactly, that's a true experiment. In experimental research, variables are actively manipulated and environment is controlled as much as possible. This is also true. In fact, the reason experimental research allows us to eliminate influence of factors is because the environment is as controlled as possible. So both are true and R is the correct explanation of A. So option A. Statement 1. In a ratio scale, 0 point is arbitrary. No, arbitrary means man-made. 0 point is true in a ratio scale. The nominal scale allows ordering or ranking of data. No, nominal scale does not allow ordering or ranking. That is the ordinal scale. Nominal scale gives only the label or category name. So both statement 1 and 2 are false. Coding is an important process in grounded theory in which data are classified into well-defined categories. Yes, this is very important because when you have a lot of data, you categorize them and from there you find patterns and hence the final theory in grounded theory. The researcher's interpretations decide his or her emergent codes in grounded theory. and different types of coding are identified exactly. It is a bit qualitative, a bit flexible, so the researcher gets to choose what are the kind of codes that they want to use for categorizing the data. So statement 2 is correct. So both statement 1 and statement 2 are true. Thank you, everybody. Next, we will be doing a session on 100 PYQs on research aptitudes. Please subscribe to the channel so that you get full access to the lessons, the soft PYQs, the exam updates, strategies, and tips. Please, please remember to press the bell icon to get all the notifications that are required. Thank you, everyone.